Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Today is just a quick tutorial, a requested tutorial for a 5x7 window box. I do have a tutorial for a 5x7 box. I will link that below if you need it to be slower. That is a slow tutorial. We're going to go a little kind of fast for this one. So you're going to need 2 sheets of cardstock. You're going to need your pattern paper, and you're going to need a sheet of acetate, and I'll give you those measurements in a minute, or you can look in the description box. Alright, so for the bottom of your box, you're going to need a piece of cardstock that measures 8 by 10. So 8 by 10. And you're going to score it at 1.5 on all 4 sides. So 1.5 and 1.5. Rotate 1.5. Rotate 1.5. Okay. Now you're going to go ahead and varnish your sides. And for boxes, you definitely want to use your thicker paper, your 110-pound weight. 80-pound weight will probably be okay, but 110 is a little bit easier. All right, so for this one, because we're going to make a hinged box, I'm going to cut into these score lines on the short side. So you're going to cut your score lines. Whatever we do to the bottom, we need to do the same exact to the top. But I cut my score lines, and I'm cutting a little less than half off my tabs just to remove some of that bulk. You don't have to, but I like to. And then I'm just mitering my corners. Okay. Do the same to the other side. Like so. There's always a question when you make the boxes whether you cut your score lines on the short side or the long side. It's really your preference. That's it. The only thing you need to remember is what you do to one side, you need to do to the other. So you could have cut the score lines here, and the tabs would have attached differently. I decided to do the short side, so the tabs are on the short side because I'm going to make a hinge box. So I didn't want the tabs to be on the long side. So it doesn't really matter. It's just your preference and if you want to cut down on bulk. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue my tabs, making sure you're getting all the way to the edge of the perimeter. Because you do not want your box to fall apart. I go ahead and glue all 4 sides, but you can do one at a time. You're just making sure that your box corners match perfectly. And gluing them all at once cuts down on drying time. Okay, so all of mine match. There we go. Okay, so this is your bottom piece, so you're just going to move that to the side. Next, what we're going to do is our top piece. Top piece is going to be just very slightly bigger, a 1/16 of an inch. So you want to put it in your paper trimmer, and you want to move to 1 tick mark after the 8. So the little 1/16 of an inch. So you're going to see the 8 and then 1 tiny tick mark. And that's it. And then the same thing for the 10-inch size, so 10 and a 16th. So 10 and one little tick mark. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to score it at 1.5 on all 4 sides, but you're not going to cut it yet. Do not cut your tabs after you score it because we're going to do the window first. And it's just going to be easier. Alright, so I'm just scoring on all 4 sides at 1.5. Not going to cut my tabs yet. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and burnish. Now, to make the window on the top, you can do 2 different methods. You can use whatever die that you have, or you can just use a ruler and your scissors. So, I did not bring any rectangle dies with me, so I'm not going to use rectangle dies. But if you were going to use a rectangle die, all you'd have to do is fold your flaps in on the long side and then put your rectangle die where you want it and run it through your machine. If you have a switch, you don't even have to fold your sides because it's big enough to hold it. But if you just have like a regular big shot, you are going to have to fold in your sides and just kind of make sure your die is not going to cut into your sides. If your die is bigger than your sides, what you're going to do is lay your die down and fold your sides up onto your die. So that way you're not cutting your side flaps. That's very important. Do not cut your side flaps. So then you'll run it through your machine like this. Okay? And then when you take it out, you'll have your perfect rectangle and then just refold your sides for your box. Okay? But since we don't have dies, we're going to use a ruler and scissors or X-Acto knife. So what I'm going to do is I want my rectangle, I want a 1-inch border. And so I'm going to put my 1 inch right on the seam or that fold line. And I'm going to mark it with a pencil. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. 1 inch from the seam. The Tim Holtz ruler is the easiest ruler to work with because you can see everything. You can see through it. But if you have a regular ruler, you know, just do what you gotta do. Okay, so 1 inch on the seam and 1 inch on the seam. Okay, so there's mine. Now, there's always question of should you put the pattern paper on first before you do your rectangle or after. If you're running it through your machine, I personally like to put my paper on first just because it's easier. Like there's no other reason, but it's just easier. If I'm doing this method, I put my paper on second because I can measure out the perfect piece. And I can put my window sheet on top of the box and underneath my pattern paper, so I don't have to decorate both the top and the underneath, if that makes sense. All right, so let's go ahead and cut this out. So you're just gonna remove the center portion. This is how I like to do it. Make a little slit in the middle. If you have an X-Acto knife, you can do that too. You can kind of save this piece of paper in the middle, but I'm not too worried about it. Use your paper trimmer if you want to. Okay. So just cut along your line to remove that center panel. And there we go. Okay, So now I'm going to cut a piece of window sheet, and it is going to be 4.5 by 6.5. So 4.5. I just want it just big enough to cover that window. So 4.5 by 6.5. See how it just goes over, but it doesn't cover anywhere where I want to put my pattern paper. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Okay. So it'll just be kind of like this so far. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take my score tape, and I'm just going to put score tape around my window sheet. You can do it around your window sheet or around the top here, it doesn't matter. Okay, and I'm going to put it around my acetate so you guys can see the acetate. I know it's kind of hard on this mat. Make sure when you have your acetate, some require you to take the film off the top. So make sure if you have that type of acetate or window sheet or clear film, you take that clear film off. Mine doesn't have that, so. All right, so here's my window. Okay. Make sure you varnish that on. And again, I'm working on the top of my box. Some people like to work underneath, but I don't want my tape and anything to show, so I work on the top. All right, so we're just gonna center this. So see, for this case, if we did this on the bottom, you would see these tape lines. Like on camera, I don't think you can really see it, but I can see it, and I don't like it. And it's crooked. You know, I don't want you to open the box and then see a crooked window sheet. So I'm going to put mine on top. Now I'm going to take a piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to make this 4 7/8 by 6 7/8, because I want an 1/8 of an inch border. You can have whatever border you want. Just do your measurements accordingly. I am going to go ahead and erase some of these pencil marks because you can see a little tiny bit of it peeping out, and I don't want that. Okay. And then the other choice too is if you want to have the border inside as well. It's really up to you. Alright, so I should have erased my lines before I put my acetate window down, but that's okay, I didn't. So you're going to determine if you want the inside border as well as the outside border. If you did not erase your pencil lines, then you may not want an inside border, or if you feel you didn't cut straight, then you're just going to take your piece of paper and you're just going to cut out the 1 inch, the same as we did here. But if you want that inside border, which I do, you're going to take your 4 7/8 by 6 7/8 piece of paper, and you're going to go on the back. I'll use this side so you can see easier. And you're going to do the same thing, but yet we're going to put our ruler at 3/4 of an inch. So you can have that little bit of a border. Again, if you don't want the border, then just do this at 1 inch again. Okay. And 3/4 of an inch. Okay. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna cut it out however you want. Now, I do want to save this inside piece of paper because I don't want to waste it. And so I'm gonna take my super sharp scissors and try to make a cut mark on one side here. This is crafting with only some of your tools. Okay. Let's see if it almost made it all the way through. There we go. Because I don't want to waste my pattern paper, so I'm just going to kind of... I said, if you have an X-Acto knife, this would be it would be easier. You can save this piece. Okay. There we go. Just made a slot big enough to cut with my larger scissors. I prefer my bigger scissors, but you may prefer smaller scissors. All right, and I know on that first piece I did not cut perfectly straight, so I will just go back and fix it just in the areas that I need to be fixed here. There we go. And anywhere else that you may not have cut completely straight, just fix it. Okay. So now you'll have your bit of a border on the outside and the inside. Okay. You can go ahead and tape that down. I would recommend using tape. If you use like Berry Arts glue and or Arts glitter glue, you should be fine on the acetate. But I just feel more comfortable using the tape right now, so we're going to use tape. And what I could have done is just taped around my window and then glued the rest, but that's okay. So I'm going to go in. And for this particular one, I have not, you see I only put the tape on the outer edge. The reason why I'm doing that is because I may want to tuck some little pieces in, like some ephemera or something in the frame, or glue, you know, a little scene on the top. It's really up to you. All right, so we're gonna line that up, push it down. Okay. Now, obviously, if you have directional paper, this is going to be a little bit trickier because you need to decide what orientation you want your box. Do you want your box to be horizontal, which that's what I made this box to be, horizontal hinge. If you're going to have it a vertical hinge, it's going to be different. So your hinge is going to be on the short side, so you need to make sure your frame is directional. Okay. So now for this one, the top, we're going to go ahead and cut our score lines on the long side. Okay. And just the same thing on this panel only, the front. This is going to be the front of your box, okay? Do not do the back yet, okay? Or the top. Do not touch it. Do both of your bottom ones first. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So stop. All right. Do not cut that top piece because we're going to do something different. If you already cut it, okay, fine. You can fix it, but it's easier if you don't. Okay. Here you go. So my preference, and this is just my preference, I like to go ahead and put the front of my box together at this stage. Some people like to wait and do it after, but I do it at this stage. Okay, so we had a little baby bird incident over there. Our balcony is glass, and he couldn't figure out he was trying to fly through the glass instead of up and over, so he went up and over now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and glue our sides. Now remember, this is the front of the box. Okay. Now if you messed up, like you turn it over and your directional paper is going the wrong direction, you can fix it. You just cut these slits and redo it. It's okay. Okay, so now on the back, right, because we're gonna make this a hinged box. So it looks something like this. I'm gonna go ahead and cut my squares out. This is your preference if you want to do it at this point or before you glue your front tabs. I have done it both ways in tutorials, but I feel like doing it this way, I get the perfect edge. I know where to cut. I don't know. I really don't know which way I like better. All right. Okay. So now you just have the little flap that you're going to just put on the outside of your box. So this is why I like doing it this way. So I can just put the lid on the front and then glue it down on the back. Again, that's my preference. You can cut your tabs first if you want, and remove that square. But I'm going to go ahead and making sure you're getting that glue edge to edge. And I'm going to put the glue on the side of the box too. And I'm going to lift and stick, making sure everything is on there. Giving your glue time to dry, which I did not do, so you see what happened. Okay. This is where tape comes in because I'm impatient, and so every time I go to open the box, this is falling off because the glue is not dry. Alright, should be dry now. Now you should just be able to lift your box open. Make sure you have that good adhesion. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but there is that tiny little bit of overhang. I'm just going to cut that off, because we know our lid had to be slightly bigger than the box so it fits nicely and it will lay flat. So that tiny little piece, I'm just gonna cut it off. And there is your hinged 5x7 box. You can take your circle punch and punch a little finger pull. If I have a punch, I'd probably use like a 1-inch circle, but I only have this tiny one with me. So about halfway. So it just looks like this. So you just, that's where you put your thumb, pull it up, okay? So super cute, and now you can use your scraps to make a card, whatever you want to do. But let me show you that inside of the box. So see, it's just clean. There's no need for a second piece of paper. There's no need for anything to hide the tape. Some people hide the acetate tape with like washi tape or whatever. There's no need to decorate the inside because we sandwiched the acetate between the box and the pattern paper on top. So that's just something that I learned to do. I mean, there's no wrong way to get it on there. It's just if you want to take extra steps. So the other piece of advice is if you're planning on doing more than one of these boxes, you can make yourself a template. So this was the template for the pattern paper. So you can just trace this template. Like if you're doing these on your lunch break, have your template. It's easier, you know, cut your paper one day, cut all your your pattern paper on one lunch break, and then the next lunch break go through and just trace and cut, trace and cut, trace and cut, assembly line it. All right, there you are. Thanks for watching. Bye.